The meaning of the parable is plain, that Jesus comes to bring God's salvation to his people, and they reject him. But he is doing the work of God. We are thinking in these Sundays about the relationship between ourselves as Christian people and the work that we have to do. Everybody in life has some kind of work. There is the work that we do with our hands, with our minds. There's the work of families, of parents who are bringing up their children. It's a serious and important kind of work. And work, we meet work on the very first pages of the Bible. God is creating the world. And it says that at the end of 6 days, from all of his work of creation. And so he hallowed the seventh day, the Sabbath, and made it a holy day. Good for us to think about that. How holy is our Sunday, the Sabbath. But the reality of God's work and of the Son that he sends into the world to do his work is something that he asks all of us to share in. Whatever our work may be, we are sharing in that divine prerogative of doing something that is meaningful and important in our own lives and the lives of others. In the bulletin today, you find this insert. There'll be one each week, as you know, and it talks today about just work, the justice that's connected with work. That affects us in two ways. There's the personal aspect of work, and there's the social or community aspect of it. On the social level, on the personal level, rather, to begin with, are each and every one of us personally, what the teaching of our faith is that everyone is entitled to work, everyone is given the prerogative of work, and that work should be something that is not only the means of supporting ourselves and our families, but it also is ennobling, that there's something about work that gives us a sense of our inherent dignity as human beings. The popes of our church, beginning with Leo XIII in 1898, talking about the beginning of the modern world with the Industrial Revolution and many of the injustices that happened as a result of that, the dark satanic mills that Tickens talks about, a very few wealthy people putting other people, even children, to work for many hours a day and receiving a pittance in return. We, Christian community, decry that kind of behavior. That work must give us a sense of our own worth, of our own dignity, and that we have a right to that. That is a matter of justice in the way we look at the world, the way we share in the work of God. And we have always to keep that in mind. Now, the other side of our personal aspect of work is that sometimes it can become a kind of obsession. You are not identical with your work. You are not your work. Work is what you do. When we meet people, we say, "What do you do?" We mean, what kind of work do you do? That's not who you are. If your work becomes a kind of obsession, then it cuts out all the other aspects of life. There are some people who say, "I have to work. I have to work." Not because I have to earn a living, but because I am no way fulfilled unless I'm working. That's an exaggeration of the aspect of work for the person. We must not identify ourselves with our work. I'm an electrician, or I'm an engineer, or I'm a bricklayer. That's what I do. But I, in myself, am this person, this individual, with my own rights, my own feelings, my own interior life. It's important to keep that distinction between what we do and what we are. Work is important in our lives, but work was not obscure everything else in our lives. The other aspect of work is the social, the communitarian aspect of it. As Christians, we always see ourselves as part of a community, not isolated. We belong together. It happens in school, for example. People are gathered together as a community. It happens to us as a parish. It happens to you in your life as a worker or your social life. We are always gathered together with others. Again, where work is concerned, and that's one of the primary aspects of the teaching of our faith about work, that it must provide the right kind of way of life that people need. If you look at this insert, a lot of things from Pope John Paul II and Pope Francis, St. Francis, that's always kind of a Freudian slip, from Pope Francis, that workers have certain rights, and we have to think about those rights and make sure that those rights are respected, that justice is always done. It can be very difficult in a social system like ours. In any social economic system, there will always be difficulties. We speak a great deal in this country about equality, with liberty and justice for all. And I kind of wince when I hear our school children saying that in the morning before they go to class. Liberty and justice for all. That's an aspiration. It's an ideal that we look forward to. It does not exist completely for everybody. We know that. But it's an ideal that we aspire to as a nation, as a society, as a group of people who believe in Christ and his teaching. Jesus was a worker, the son of a carpenter. His disciples were fishermen, small businessmen. Jesus gave us the example in his own person. In this, as in everything that he does, whatever he says to us about our life and what we should do, we can be sure he has done himself. He is like us in all things except sin, the Bible tells us. So we come together today to think about that, and to take away that insert from the bulletin, please take a look at that. There's some really important things in that to think about in the coming week, to insert it into our own hearts and minds, our way of thinking and looking at the world. Because in all things, we follow the example of Christ, who is the love of God, who comes to earth to do the work of God. And whatever way we can, we share in that work.